In the United States, we frequently disregard how important our home is, but it's really your haven, right? You have to create this space where you come home and you're like, oh, I'm so glad to be here. And then think about your kitchen, what a big role your kitchen plays, nourishes your body. So you have to create these spaces in the house that are like your little wellness.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey there, No Labels, No Limits podcast listeners. Welcome back to another week on the podcast. I'm Sarah Box, your host of this No Labels, No Limits show. And as you know, we are on a mission to help individuals, teams, and organizations think outside the box, move beyond limiting labels and belief, and ultimately create a profound impact in their own lives and the lives of those they connect with. And we do this by sharing accomplished and inspiring guests who have challenged limiting labels and beliefs and gone on to pursue and accomplish their own personal and or professional goals. And today is no different. Actually, I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to today's guest, but we were cracking up before I hit record. We probably should have recorded. We have covered beverages, good beverages, healthy coffee, all of that. You're missed out on that, but this is good. So let me just tell you, Dr. Christiane Schroeder is a business and wellness coach, and she has this European flair that you'll catch on to quickly. Now, Dr. Schroeder has faced her own challenges. And one of the things I really like about her, she's got a PhD in health economics, but she combines gamification and storytelling to revolutionize wellness coaching. So those are kind of three pegs on a stool that I think are really important when we're helping ourselves and others, is keeping it fun, having a story that keeps us engaged, and then wellness. Wellness. So despite facing her own challenges of self-esteem, she now empowers women to excel in health and confidence, transforming how they appear in life and business. She is, in her own right, a celebrated podcaster of the Happy Healthy Hustle, and her teachings reach a global audience, fostering a community that learns to nurture health without feeling overwhelmed. And I'm just thinking today is a perfect day for me to be speaking with you, Christiane, because I've been wondering that question. So let's dive in. First, formally welcome to the No Labels, No Limits podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I am really thrilled to be here today.
I've been looking forward to this. Let me start with kind of a little bit of your background, or let you start with that. You turned a battle with low self-esteem in being a motivator to other people, like going from that to helping others. So what was the bridge from where you were to where you got to?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's also the reason why I named my business Hello Happy Nest. We frequently think of the place where we grew up as like being our home, and our body, of course, being our very best own home. And I think low self-esteem frequently comes from the fact that we maybe don't really feel comfortable in our own body. So we don't feel comfortable in the area that we live, or maybe even interacting with the people that we interact with on a daily basis. So for me, I grew up in Germany. You can hear it from my accent. And Sarah mentioned the European flair. I have to say that I never really felt like, that was like for me, the place to be. I don't adore the German, cold temperatures that we have there. I think I'm more cut up, and you can see I wear a tank top right now. I live in California. I think that my whole body and everything was more cut out for warmer temperature, which in Germany, it's pretty much limited to the month of July.
Yes, I've traveled, right?
Oh, yeah. So when I reached the United States and I came to San Luis Obispo, which is where I live and coach right now, I pretty much felt immediately at home. And I would always encourage to all the audience, don't ever hesitate to travel and don't ever hesitate to explore how it feels when you come to other parts in the world, because sometimes there is just this immediate feeling of connection and you're kind of feeling at home. So my company, Hello Happiness, was pretty much born in California. And I felt immediately like, yeah, this is my nest. This is where I really feel happy, where I belong. Where I say happiness is born in this beautiful area right here. So there's the ocean, there are mountains. I love the temperatures, lots of fruits and vegetables. You talked about this earlier, Sarah. And I also connect really well with the culture here. And that's really when I felt I became more comfortable with who I am, and being more comfortable then really grew from the outside in, right? The environment, but I also started working on some health issues I was working on, and then really became into the feeling like this is who I was supposed to be, where I was supposed to be, and what I was supposed to do.
You describe it like almost finding a long lost friend that you always had with you, but you didn't know. There she is. There's the real Christine, right? Blooming where you're planted now, right? That, I will say, that's a beautiful part of the California coast, down there. I've got friends who live and teach there, and there's just something magical about it. It's like not too big, not too small, not too hot, not too cold.
Yep. I always say it's like the Goldilocks.
Exactly. I was like,
We have a little bit of beach. We have a little bit of mountains. It's just a little bit of everything. And of course, what's beautiful is it's somewhat secluded, but it's really not, right?
It's accessible.
You can still reach Los Angeles. You can still reach San Francisco. And it has a little vibe of everything. So it's quite lovely. Fun fact is that just last Friday, I met with a lady that I only knew by Instagram who traveled through. And the week before, another friend that has a podcast, she's actually from Australia, traveled through. So I like living in an area where a lot of my virtual friends actually go on vacation. Because then I can meet up with them. Another fun fact is that this place here, San Luis Obispo, was voted as one of the happiest places on earth. So if you Google it, that might come up as your number one Google finding, that San Luis Obispo is voted as one of the happiest places on the earth. I think there is some other place in Norway or somewhere in Northern Europe, and this one goes right along with it.
Sadly, Norway will not give you the warm temperatures.
Yeah. That's, you basically, you find your own happiness. And this is my happiness right here.
Yeah. And it's amazing when that clicks for you. I mean, I grew up in California and I love California. But I moved here, which is high desert. It's over the mountains and on the eastern side of the Sierra. But one day I just woke up and I thought, I've needed big open sky my whole life, but I want to be near the trees, big sky near trees. So, but it was that same reckoning. It's like, well, this is good. This is good. Okay. So you went on and got your degrees, and I'm very curious about what led you towards health economics, number one. And then how you bring gamification into how you work with folks.
Oh, great question. So when I grew up, I was always passionate about helping others. That's like the number one thing. I think all entrepreneurs are essentially helping others to help themselves, right? So successful, thriving businesses are usually born on the idea of something that you struggled with yourself, and then you can't wait to share it with others. And that's kind of like how I really became passionate about health economics. I always struggled with digestive issues. So I was passionate about finding solutions that are helping my digestive issues in a natural way. And at the same time, I was always passionate of doing it in an economic way too. So I wanted to do quick and efficient solutions to a health problem I was really dealing with. And health economics is just that. It's trying to figure out how can we lead a healthy life without breaking the bank, right? So maybe finding healthier solutions that are somewhat also lower priced, or finding wellness solutions such as working out in a quick and efficient way. So I wrote my dissertation on how can we find or how can we subsidize healthier foods, and then how can that help the obesity crisis in the United States. And it actually ended up becoming the award-winning thesis at Purdue University, where I graduated from, because I looked at this interesting idea of taxing high-calorie food and subsidizing low-calorie food, which when I graduated was a somewhat novel idea, and since then has become more mainstream. And what I would really think about is, if you think, about yourself and the way that you lead your life, that's really what we're always passionate about. We want to be healthy, but we don't want to make it complicated. So foods that have, a good taste, but are healthy, that's really the winning formula right there.
Yep. That high nutritional value. Oh, and I would add to that, like, not a big hassle.
Mm-hmm.
So not going through a drive-through, not that kind of like just grab what's available, but it's so great when you go somewhere. And I remember, just traveling, right? You're driving a car, you're limited, like if you're just getting on and off. And I remember walking into this one, it was like a gas station, but it had food, that whole section on healthy food. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I am in a happy place, right? Fresh food, right? It came in from nearby. So I thought, okay, I didn't have to stop. I don't have to eat junk, but also that's kind of my day-to-day thing, to just keep it simple. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's easy to not do it. It's easy to not do it. So give us some of your best tips. Like, you have a client or people you're helping and they come to you. What are some of the things that people really resonate with?
And I love that you just brought up the hassle, and I call it friction, actually, in business, right? So think about, you just went shopping for fruits and vegetables and you brought all this home. It was already like a lot of work, unless you have something what we have in San Luis Obispo, which is this beautiful farmers market, which is happening on Thursday nights from 6 till 9 o'clock, and you meander around and pick up fresh fruits and vegetables from the farmers market. Let's say you went to a grocery store. So you have to put all that in the fridge. And now what, right? Now you're sitting at your desk on the next day, and that stuff is in the fridge, but it's really not done. So that's sometimes the challenge with fruits and vegetables. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to wash it, I have to cut it up. And then it's maybe not even like, it's not a mixed salad yet. So I have to do a whole bunch of cutting up and all this. So the trick really is, when you come home, arrange it immediately the way that it will make that friction less, right? So maybe what you could do is, let's say you want a watermelon. Could you cut up that watermelon so that on the next day you have watermelon chunks instead of a whole watermelon that you have to cut up when you're really busy? Because you might want to, think about, you go shopping at night, in the evening. So what could you prepare for the next day that would lower that friction of grabbing the healthy snacks? Because if there's one thing that's very prevalent, is there's a lot of waste with regard to food that you purchase. And frequently it happens just because you didn't use things up quickly enough, especially fruits and vegetables. So you immediately, once you buy them, your clock starts ticking because things were already lying in the grocery store. So now you need to think about, all right, so what are the next steps? What do I need to move that can make me healthy without constantly, standing there and cutting and washing fruits and vegetables? And I'm always behind my children too, where I ask them, did you eat your fried fruits and vegetables? And because they sometimes don't think about it, I need to put it right in front of them, right? So that's another friction. If you don't see it, you don't eat it, right? So maybe arrange some things on the countertop. Or I have these cool baskets that I bought at Target or Target, right?
Target.
I kind of screwed them into walls. It's essentially just a wooden crate. And then the fruit is displayed there, nearly like a traffic light, right? The greens and the oranges and the reds. And when you walk by, you're like, whoa, this is kind of cool. And then hopefully you don't only think that, you also grab something out of it.
Well, it's kind of top of mind.
Exactly. And that's really what you'll need to do in order to move the fruits and vegetables, and not only have it in your fridge, have it in your pantry, wherever you put things, but you need to have it so that you see it. So I have like 3 hot corners in my house where there is fruits and vegetables, and you really can't prevent that you see it. And that's the trick of eating healthy. So frequently with my clients, we just need to get things out of the crisper drawers, or actually getting out of the plastic bags from the store, step 1, right? And then out of the crisper drawers somewhere different. Because, for instance, tomatoes, way better if it's outside, right? Or apples don't need to be in the fridge, or oranges or anything like that. By all means, banana, but definitely not. So the trick frequently with my clients is to make it more accessible, and then really get into a routine of weaving those snacks into your day.
I love it. And I know for me, if I like to shop when I'm not exhausted, so I will come home and put things away. But if I'm tired at all, I won't. I just won't. I'll put them in the crisper like you're saying. But I love it when I come home and I think, okay, here's my romaine lettuce. It's going in the sink right now. It's getting washed right now. And then I'm going to wash it, rinse it, put a towel around it so it doesn't get icky. And now I know when it's dinner time, all I have to do is grab that and cut it. It's fast. It's fast. But you're right. And it's so great when we remember that. So do you have a little thing you put in your head so it's visible out where you can see it? Mm-hmm. And I really like that as well, because I wash my apples, but then I'll put them in the fridge if I don't want them on the counter too long. But then I forget they're there until I go to bed at night. I'm thinking, I was going to have that apple today. Mm-hmm. And there it sits, right? So, but is there something like when people are thinking, well, I can do it later, do you have your clients think a different thought maybe to help?
Yeah. So I actually, because I'm this, I'm always about the French flair, and I think frequently Europeans just come up with these cute little things that they can do. So I call it in my coaching, petite practice, like a little thing you can do, but it's not really like work, right? So for instance, you could buy like these cute hanging baskets. I have some in my kitchen. They're like these 3-tier, they're like stainless steel baskets. Uh-huh. And then I approach the kitchen, and I immediately see, apples right there, So they're not even on the countertop, like cluttering up space, but they are right there. And what I have my clients do is I kind of check in on it, which at the beginning seems like, like, oh my gosh, he's going to ask me. I frequently have them actually say they were quickly eating my fruits because we're on the coaching call in a little bit, and that's good, right? So you need an accountability partner. Super, super important. So with your petite practice, try to weave in little things that at the beginning are not really habit quite yet, but then eventually you keep repeating it and you keep on like remembering it, because when you don't do it anymore, you tend to miss it. So it's just a small little nudge, and it could come from your accountability partner. It could come from your planner, from your timer, right? But at the beginning, you need to make sure that it's just a little bit of something that you add to your day. And I always say it's easier to add than to restrict. So don't say, oh, well, I can't eat the little piece of chocolate anymore I have with my coffee, because, why not, right? Just have a piece of chocolate. It's not a big deal. Just do it. But then maybe you could add an apple too. Apple and chocolate. Good combo. Or maybe
excellent.
Or cheese and apple, also good combo. So it's good to add much harder. And if you think about your soul to restrict, because we feel deprived. We're like, oh, I wish I would have had that chocolate. Don't do that. It's not a good thing. Yeah.
No. And isn't that the truth, right? It's easier to add something, and then pretty soon the other stuff starts falling away. It's like, no, I'm not really craving that or wanting that right now.
Yeah.
So that's really a good reminder to do the petite piece. I like the baskets. I'm telling you, I'm mentally in my head. I'm looking at my kitchen, which is very tiny. I'm thinking, where can I put those guys? So,
I can send you a picture. My kitchen is tiny too. And I can give you some more pointers about the kitchen thing, because I'm just so into the organizing thing. But it helps to have clean countertops to cut up those salads later, Sarah.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. That's my thing. I know I do. I walk out in the kitchen. If there's anything in the sink, it's got to be washed and put in the drainer. My husband goes, I said, it's mental in my head, honey. If that counter is dirty, I can't even think about supper. Right. It's like, it's for me, it's just like, it's a clean space to land my creativity and whatever's going on. So I get you with the clean countertops, because and it only takes a minute. It takes a lot longer when you don't keep up with it.
Oh, for sure. And the other thing too is it's just kind of like thinking about happiness. In the United States, we frequently disregard how important our home is, but it's really your haven, right? You have to create this space where you come home and you're like, I'm so glad to be here. And then think about your kitchen, what a big role your kitchen plays, nourishes your body. So you have to create these spaces in the house that are like your little wellness, right? Moving from space to space should spark joy and not be like, oh gosh, I have to do this or that.
No dread.
Gliding through the house and seeing these little islands of joy.
You make me want to think of songs when you say those kind of things. It's like you are when you speak, you evoke pictures. Oh. I don't know if you think in pictures. Yeah. Like I'm seeing pictures in my head. Hopefully they're coming from you, or don't know where they're coming.
That's the gamification piece, right? We need to talk about this gamification piece.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So the way that I basically approach life, and you kind of got that earlier when I talked a little bit about the little nudges, is that, you just need to enjoy it. You need to have fun. And sometimes I see that in my teenagers now as they grow up, adults kind of lose the ability to behave like children. And games are really not just to bridge time, but they're also to learn procedures. And there's always something in a game that you're picking up. And what's the best way to learn something is to have fun and to enjoy it and to maybe incorporate into a game. Because I don't want to say, oh, there's rules. No, maybe it's just like little guidelines, right? Guidelines. And then you're learning the guidelines. And while you learn the guidelines, you're picking up maybe a new process of anything. So if I were to tell you, well, let's talk about like how to eat more fruits and vegetables during the day, that sounds like really boring. But I'm going to say, well, let's play a game. We're going to call it the rainbow game. And today we're going to try and hit all colors of the rainbow with your fruits and vegetables. All of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, now I have to really think about this. What's purple? They're like, oh, great, we got this, So I'm always thinking about how can I make something, instead of using the words task or challenge, how can I make something a petite practice? So when I coach and when I teach, I do just that. I try to boil it down to like a 1-page worksheet, because I think that's digestible. Yeah. No 20-page PDFs. We're not into that. 1 page. And then I try to make it a game. And that's, I think, really how I've seen the most amazing results in my coaching and my teaching and in my day-to-day life, because I look at life as something that just have fun with it, right?
So let's break those 3 things down that you just mentioned. What are some of the, either for yourself or people you've helped, in the areas of your coaching, day-to-day life, health, what are some of like the, wow, I never saw that coming. That was great. What are some of those stories?
For sure. So earlier we talked about the fruits and vegetables, and we talked a little bit about the challenges of eating healthier. Another challenge that I frequently see, and I struggled a lot with myself, is drinking water, right? How do I stay on top of fluid intakes during the day? So a lot of my clients have the same issue. They come to me like, oh, I just don't like the taste of water. So I drink, the canned soda all day long, the sparkling soft drinks, etc., which is good. But again, keep in mind, I'm also looking at digestive issues. a lot of those have a lot of citric acid in it, and the bubbles itself are actually not ideal if you tend to bloat easily or anything. It's not ideal for you, right? Soft drinks are not. So then what I do is I tell my clients, you are going to figure out something, water, or maybe it's herbal tea, and maybe you add a little bit of like a squeeze of lemon or orange to it, and you're going to prepare the whole thing in the morning. So it's done. And then you're going to maybe buy some cute little mugs, some little, containers where you put it in, maybe some nice little glasses that look gorgeous. And you can even decorate them up with straws or maybe even a slice of lemon on the top, right? There is a little European flair thing. And we're going to work on your hydration. You need to have them everywhere where you are stationed during the house, during the day. So maybe at your desk, maybe in the kitchen, maybe on the couch. And you're going to look at these as like your little, like if you think about a game, that's like you're moving through the house nearly like a pet on a little game board. And wherever you go, you have something to drink right there, right? So I've had clients that said I couldn't believe the amount of water that I drank during the day. And it tasted really good because I just infused it with some lemon. I would have never thought it's that easy. But the trick is you have to prepare it in the morning. And the trick is you have to distribute it during the house. Yeah. So again, think about the games, right? So you have to kind of like challenge yourself a little bit and like overcoming any friction that you might have, because it's a lot of work, Sarah, if you think about that, getting up and refilling your water. In reality, really not. But we just don't do it, right?
Well, it's not if it's a habit. Like it's not hard to remember to brush your teeth. Why? Because it's a habit. You don't think about it. You just do it. Or if you fail to do it and you're a regular teeth brusher, you could be 20 minutes away and thinking, oh my God, I feel terrible. I don't, it's a weird thing. So it's interesting with the water because I am one of those people who I didn't realize I was dehydrated because I didn't feel thirsty, right? But logic would tell you when you live in a high desert where it's already arid, you start off dehydrated, whether you feel dehydrated or not. And so I noticed that I've been requiring myself to drink a glass of warm water, a cup of warm water, before I have my first cup of coffee in the day. It's like, just do it. You like hot water, put some lemon in it, drink it, right? Mm-hmm. That's not hard. And that's 1 cup down. But it took me a while. And even now, sometimes I'm thinking, no, I just want my coffee. I'm thinking, girl, this is going to take you 2 minutes. Take care of yourself, right? So then I start laughing, going, okay. But you're right about doing it in the morning, because I know when I fill my thermos and I put it by my purse, which I walk by many times a day, it's like, oh, that's still at the same level, right? But I have water in the other places. So I didn't know that was a gamification, but it has worked for me. And I always take water to bed with me at night and hopefully drink it during the night. But it's there if I need it. So I think that's pretty powerful. And when people you've worked with have done that, what have they come back telling you, Christiane?
Well, a couple of fun things. First, and I frequently see that with my clients when I'm, because I also teach workout classes, right? I'm also the wellness coach piece, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many times I had to go to the bathroom during the day. And it's like, right. But then think about, that's actually good, right? Because you're flushing out toxins. So it's not necessarily negative because you're flushing out toxins, and you're going to see, your skin, your hair, your overall energy levels going up because you're essentially keeping hydration and you're keeping, your body nicely hydrated. You're going to notice there's going to be a really big difference. So I usually get that comment. It's like, oh my gosh, now I have to always.
Well, does that level out? Like once your body gets a certain from water, does it level out? That's my burning question. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, there are actually, you can calculate how much water you would really need to drink, right? It is dependent on, gender, age, your activity level, etc. So you could calculate it out. I personally don't do that, but if you're really, curious about it, there is probably like that tipping point to where you're feeling, all right, this is probably the max liquid I should get during the day in terms of water. I love that you brought up the coffee and water. It's a very European thing. Frequently in French cafes or in Italian cafes, when you order an espresso, it comes actually with some water because coffee is actually dehydrating. Yeah. And then the coffee is balanced out by the water that you use to hydrate. So my clients frequently, what they say is that, especially with hydration, they say that they couldn't believe how much more alert they have become with hydration. Because as you mentioned, you are not necessarily thirsty. So thirst isn't necessarily even like a signal why you should drink something, but it could just be that maybe you're a little bit more tired, or maybe you're feeling like snacking. So frequently my clients say, I'm drinking more, and because I drink more, now I'm eating less, because what I would always do is I would constantly snack. And now the snacking has gone away because I'm maybe drinking more liquids, and it makes me feel fuller, where I used to fill it maybe with candy. Now I'm filling it with lemon water, right?
Well, so that's a reinforcing cycle, right? That you may not. So let me ask this. Someone starts doing that. How long typically before they start noticing that type of difference?
Yeah. So so this is a great question. And frequently I start working with people. The number one thing is, I want to lose weight, or I have like this reunion coming up. And I always say, let's not worry about that. We cannot worry about the scale because it's a very numeric issue tied to so many things that we can't influence that, and we don't want to influence that because it shifts your focus on something that shouldn't be focused on, right? It's about how you feel. So I would say for every good habit to kick in, I would probably give it like 5 to 10 days. After a week, you actually, if you start weaning off, for instance, coffee, after a week, you tend to realize that's maybe getting a little bit easier. Or let's say maybe in the evening you go for a walk after dinner. After a week, maybe after dinner, you're like, yeah, sure, I stepped up to my walk, right? So maybe you start like kind of missing it if you don't do it. And it helps a lot if it's, again, something very, very small that doesn't require a lot of effort. So if you, for instance, do that walk in the evening, you already have your shoes at the door. And maybe you have your jacket there or whatever else you need. So there's not a lot of searching around. Or I do that with my clients a lot too. The shoes would be in the spot of something that you would usually do in the evening. So let's say usually in the evening, maybe you go to the cabinet and you grab chocolate or something like that. Or maybe you go and watch TV. So maybe you put your shoes where the remote is, and then you see the remote. And you're like, it's true. I actually wanted to go for a walk, didn't I? Huh? And then you go for your walk.
That's so great. I just had a vision of my big old tennis shoes in the cupboard, and I'm going, I'm not sure that's a healthy thing to do. But I get the point, and it is really easy when it's visual, right? You're going, oh yeah, because it cues you. It says, remember, this is what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So that's not very long. 5 to 10 days, start seeing a shift, get going on it.
For sure. And it's, I totally put it in a very visual sense, of course, the shoes, maybe where your snacks are. So, Brené Brown, whom I personally admire a lot, what she actually did is she took a picture of her shoes and put it in the pantry, right? So in one of her books, she describes that. And when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, of course, how brilliant. You don't need to put shoes in a pantry. But
it's a little more hygienic.
Take a picture and put it in the pantry. And then you're like, oh, that's true. And speaking of which, we started talking with the fruits and vegetables, right? The more visual you actually prepare your life, the more fun it becomes, which kind of, with shoes is a very important thing, because don't just buy sneakers to buy sneakers, but maybe you buy them in a sense that you actually look forward to wear them, and don't just, think of like, oh, I need to put them on to go on my walk, but put them on and like, yeah, no, I am a walker, right? So it kind of like confirms that you're doing what you're doing. That is another mental step towards changing your habits.
So that's telling a story to ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I know that you do a lot of that when you're working with people, is to reframe and help folks. Share a little bit about how that might look for people, so is it just like making up a story, but how do you help us reframe and tell a different story about who we are or want to be?
A brilliant question. So earlier we started talking a little bit about the confidence, and frequently, especially as entrepreneurs, it's not a straight line in your business, right? There are many days when you tell yourself, and that's maybe on low confidence days, what I do, everybody else is doing it already. And is there actually a purpose why I'm doing what I'm doing? And do people actually need this? And I feel like whatever I do, it's not working, and yada, 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 kind of like the negative Nelly talk, right? We all have those days. That's totally fine. But then there's like two things we can do. A, we can reach out to our accountability partner, even by text message, and say not having a good day. If it's a good accountability partner, that person might text you back like a little meme or something like that, and like say, just keep going. People need what you do. So that's step one, reach out to your accountability partner. Step two is what you could do. And again, this is a visual thing. You could maybe on little Post-it note, write, it could be a quote, it could be a saying, it could be a little testimonial from a client, and put that sticky note somewhere in a mirror or next to your computer or next to a walkway, like next to your fridge, who knows what, where you frequently go. And then you see that, and it's a positive enforcement. I can't tell you enough how many of my clients have told me that these little quotes are so empowering. And again, it's just a petite practice, but then again, it might help getting out of that slump that you're in. So little confidence boosters doesn't mean that you necessarily, should stop whatever you're doing. Sometimes it's just a reframing. It's like, right, maybe there are people that don't need what I do, but I do know that there are a lot of others that actually, in fact, do. And even if there's other coaches out there, nobody is saying it the way that I say it. So the reframing could be coming through on that little Post-it note that you put somewhere, and you look at it and it's like, all right, I didn't do so great. Maybe that was an element of failure even, but maybe that failure just meant it was my first attempt in learning, right? And maybe that just means I need to keep going. It was my first attempt, and I'm not going to stop it the first time. And the no maybe just meant next opportunity. So it's just a reframing and a little nudge that keeps going. And again, Post-it notes are a pretty cool thing and pretty inexpensive. So we're getting our health economics right there.
Yep. And they show up. You can put them almost anywhere. And, since we're all going to be in the bathroom more from drinking, I just say stick them in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know you're going to see it at some point during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you mentioned accountability, but you also emphasized the importance of a community, a supportive community. So how is that different from an accountability person, or how do you use community in helping people?
I kind of build it like a 3-step system in my coaching. I said we first connect, right? We connect with others, and that could be in a bigger group of people. That could be one-on-one, kind of getting to know each other. Frequently can tell that people, especially if you connect via Zoom, they sometimes don't want to have their cameras on, etc. And that's all right. As long as they're showing up, they're still connecting, right? And then I give them little nudges to start collaborating. And I actually have little games that we play in my coaching that will get conversation flowing, right? And I can share some of those games in a little while. But then the third step is that builds community. Because the more that you think about your connection, your collaboration, and your community, the more you feel you belong. And this feeling of belong is frequently when you start sharing what makes you unique. And, in business, we call it your unique selling proposition or unique value proposition. What is it really that you bring to the table, and there will be something that nobody else is doing the way that you do it.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you said we could talk about later. Just because I think people are be curious about it, right?
Love it. So one of the games that I frequently play, and I have to say, actually, I wrote a book. It's called How to Master Your Goals. And I created a little mini version of my book during my summer coaching programs for the How to Master Your Goal. And that particular game is in that book. And we played it so much that I was like, that must be the game of the summer. So let's do it right now, Sarah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So this particular game is actually based on the famous actor Kevin Bacon, right?
Okay.
Kevin Bacon appeared in the movie Footloose, right? I just actually used that song yesterday in my spin class. It's a really upbeat song.
Oh, it's a great song. Very retro.
Oh, yeah. And if you are in a bad mood, music will help a lot too. That's another thing. Aside from the accountability part and the post-it notes, maybe switch on some music that will help a lot too. So Kevin Bacon once discovered that when he goes to any big Hollywood parties, he runs into so many people that he has appeared on movies with that essentially he just needs to count down to like 6. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I know you. I've been in a movie with you. And it's called The 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Okay. So what we do is in my little connection game is we essentially play the game where we're trying to figure out what do we have in common? Is there something that we have in common? And it starts with just looking at each other. For instance, just last week when I played this game, right? They figured out they have like the same type of earrings that they're wearing or something like that. It could be that maybe some other glasses, haircuts, who knows what. But then I always say, surprise me. I want like the most interesting commonalities. And then, of course, it's a game. I always give out prizes, right? I'm like, now you have to surprise me and I will have little prizes for the most surprising commonalities that you pick up. And I give them a very limited amount of time, 5 minutes. And I say, go. And then I pair them up. Maybe it could be a triad, right? 3 people working together. It could be just with one other partner, not to overwhelm them. And you will be so surprised, Sarah, what people come up with. So, and just to kind of like give the audience a flashback, we said that earlier we were thinking we should have recorded this, but Sarah and we already discovered a lot of commonalities before we actually ever recorded this podcast. We realized that both of us like lattes and we like to try certain things and we make it really nice and fancy. It's like a little treat in the day.
You have an espresso maker. Mm-hmm. I've lived in California. I got my first moving violation in San Luis Obispo ever. Yeah. So, you know.
So why do you think we're playing this game of commonalities, right? Because it builds community.
Yeah, that's great. That's so fun. And it's surprising, you know, because you just don't know what you don't know about other people.
Well, the funniest thing is, and we frequently get such laughs and amazing stories, is when people go around, instead of introducing yourself, like saying, oh, my name is Christiana, da, 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 we have the other person introduce their partner, right? So here's Sarah. She loves lattes and she sometimes like adds 2 cartridges to it. She got her first violation. What was it? A speeding violation?
It was, yes, I was a bit over the speed limit. Hard to do a Volkswagen van though, I'm telling you.
Yeah. So she drove a German car, which I am from Germany, so there's one commonality right there, in San Luis Obispo, where I live right now. And she loves lattes. We got 3 different things. Check, 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 check. And all that I wrapped into 1 sentence of introduction. Now you know a lot about Sarah without ever having met her.
That's so fun. And it takes the stress off of people having to introduce themselves, right? Especially if you're shy. Someone else can introduce you.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I sometimes, say people say something like a fun fact about yourself. And I was like, oh, there's nothing fun about me. We
Do you
did.
ever have your people play two truths and a lie?
That's a good one too, right?
Well, it's good because it's a facial thing. You have to watch someone and see if they've got to tell, like when they're, it's so fun because people just get crazy. They make up crazy stories, and the energy level, it's more loose and expressive. And then people can have some fun, and then you can do some serious work, but people are already like, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm present.
Yep. So this is a good icebreaker game in a certain way. And I have a whole handbag full of icebreaker games. Another good one I was just thinking about earlier is if you have a dinner party and it's sometimes a little bit, there's a, oh gosh, can we talk about at the dinner table? There's actually a game that you can buy. It's called Table Topics, right? It's just a question on a little cardboard, and you draw it out of a box, right? And then you read the question, and everybody has to go around the table and answer this particular question. And I've played with friends that I've had for years, decades, and I still discover new things. It's such a great game. Yeah.
So you've given us some great tips, Christiane.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure there was one other question I wanted to ask you. I may have woven it in already, but I'm going to go back to my notes real quick here. Yes, we talked about your petite practices, and also going and finding your happy nest, or being willing to travel for that. I know that you you've got that book. What else are you looking forward to this year? And I'm saying this year, like between now and the end of 2024. What else is in the Christiane bag of tricks that you're looking forward to?
Great question. So my book that is currently in the hands of the government copyright review, because again, I innovated a lot of different elements in it, and I don't really feel like that, other people can just take it. No. It's my little baby, right, so to speak. My next step after the book is I would like to become a TEDx speaker. So if there is one thing that I really want to share is some moments of joy to others, and maybe inspire them to go after their own passion. That's really my ultimate goal, because I think so many are holding back. Another game that I innovated, I call it the tombstone game. What would you like that your tombstone says about you, right? Is there something that if you could write your own inscription, what would that be? I mean, of course, there's your name, right? But then what would you like that maybe a little sentence about you that you really want to leave as far as a legacy? And if you don't feel that you're working on that legacy, let's get started, right? Let's get started. So for me, that's really my ultimate goal, is to inspire others to go and master their goals, just like I named my book, but that they ultimately feel, yes, I've reached my passion. I've shared my passion with the world, and whatever I would destined to do, I'm really feeling like I'm leaving a legacy behind.
I think we share many things in common. We'll add that to the coffee.
I love it.
Okay, so I'm going to leave you with the final words of wisdom on the podcast before I take it to the end and wrap this up. What do you want our listeners to think about and remember as they go into the rest of their week, or whatever place that is when they're listening to this episode?
Please remember that on those days when you're maybe not feeling well, and maybe you're even thinking to yourself, what a failure. Just remember, failure, FAIL, stands just for first attempt in learning. Just keep getting up. Because it's not the smartest people that win. It's just the ones that are the most persistent, the ones that keep getting up. And you can do it. Yeah, just your first attempt. Just keep getting up, right? Let's do it.
Okay, No Labels, No Limits podcast listeners. Christiane really dropped a bunch of good golden nuggets today. So I'm encouraging to share this episode with others who you think, oh, they need to hear from her. Leave a review, if you would, in the podcast notes. But the other thing you could do, which we'd love to see you do, is if you have a question or a comment or a thought about what you heard, we'd love to see you share it so that maybe there will be some feedback from other people who go, I took that away too, or here's something else I took away. So we're encouraging you to build community around what Christiane shared today. And then come back next week for another great episode of the No Labels, No Limits podcast.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.